Welcome to I Drink Your Podcast, where we drink and talk about movies from 2007.
Can't stop what's coming.
So, cool beans.
Cool beans.
Mixing his character and his real name. Okay.
We have fun.
How about a suicide pact?
What are you trying to be, an Irish R&B singer?
Oh, it's because he's 60 years old. 60 years old. The alcohol's working.
We need water.
I drink your podcast. I drink it up.
All right, welcome back to another episode of I Drink Your Podcast. I am Matt, and before we get started, everybody, let's do some housekeeping. If you guys want to go ahead and just rate us on iTunes, leave a review, all that stuff helps us grow, and we appreciate you clicking that sub button. And if you don't mind sharing us with a few of your friends, that all helps us grow. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. So joining me today is going to be Ben. What are you drinking?
I have a couple blondes here in front of me, one from Liftbridge and one from Shells, in honor of my favorite blonde from Spider-Man 3, Gwen Stacy.
Yum.
I thought you were going to say Brock.
Yum. Okay, Wesley, what are you drinking?
Hi, I am having a Manhattan because Peter Parker's from Queens.
Okay. Love it. Adjacent. Emily, what are you drinking today?
I'm drinking a Blood and Sand, which has sweet vermouth, scotch, cherry liqueur, and orange juice, but I used pomegranate juice because I'm a fancy bitch, I guess.
Yum. It sounds like you're the
tasty.
classiest of us all right now.
No, it was literally just something we had in our cupboard.
Oh,
it sounds
yeah.
so
Just
snooty.
a dash of this and that and muddle this.
Seriously, this is all Corbin.
Matt, what are you drinking?
I've got a vodka cranberry with a splash of orange liqueur just to... I just realized orange has nothing to do with Spider-Man 3, which is what we're watching today, but that's what I'm drinking, folks. So the first half of our show, we're going to be discussing and reviewing Spider-Man 3, and the second half is going to be the Battle of Twits between Ben and I. Wesley will be judging with Emily. As I said earlier, we're watching Spider-Man 3, directed by Sam Raimi, featuring Tobey Maguire, Kirsten Dunst, Topher Grace, Thomas Hayden Church as the Sand Boy. Whoop, whoop. I feel like you have to say as, you know, I don't know how the credits work. There's something specific. But and then last we got James Franco rounding that out. So since we're watching Spider-Man 3, I just want to start us off with, you guys, what kind of superpower would you want? Wesley, how about you kick us off?
Okay, so I had to do a little bit of research on this because I didn't want to come in hot and heavy with the generic everybody thinks of. And one of the most amazing superpowers that I came across was an indestructible digestion.
The opposite.
The Crohn's disease? Come on, that would be the best superpower ever.
Wow.
But that's not what I'm picking. Let's get real with each other. I would really, really, really want to be a shapeshifter. Like, what would it be like if you could be a snake slithering around in the grass? And in case you're wondering, yes, I did go on a hike in a prairie this morning.
Do you have to touch the animals before you get to shapeshift into them?
No, I'm super smart and can just do whatever I want.
Okay. I just thought...
Obviously.
What if you
Animorphs.
shapeshifted into what you thought they looked like, though, and not what they actually look like? Like, you have just an intermental image of what a snake looks like, only it doesn't look anything snake-like in real life?
Well, that's totally fine because I'm a shapeshifter. I'm not assume the shape of something else. I can be whatever I want to be. So if my snake ends up having a donkey head and a scorpion tail, then so be it. That's my shape. But honestly, my thought for this is, you know, what if I could keep eating and drinking like I'm doing in quarantine, but still like have a super rockin' bod? Come on, that'd be pretty
You've
sweet.
got that. You've got that rockin' bod.
I mean, yeah, listeners.
You sound like it, baby.
Or better yet, what if you could just live in the day of someone else's shoes and learn some true empathy? I think that would be pretty awesome. All good reasons to be a shapeshifter, though.
Yeah, those are all good, and mine's kind of shape-shifting, but I just want to be able to materialize whatever I want out of nowhere. And I want to use that power strictly for good, my own good. Like, I'm not gonna materialize things for other people. It just works for me. And like, my power knows when I'm doing it for someone else, and it doesn't work. So I just want a selfish power for myself.
Wow.
What do you call that power?
Materialization.
Okay, fair.
No, it's called Accio, actually.
But what about like if you just materialized money or crypto, you could just give it to somebody else. What would happen then?
How would you materialize crypto? Is crypto even like a tangible thing?
It's in a computer somewhere. You
No,
know,
it's not.
It's ons and offs.
I'm sorry, I completely spaced out and thought you were talking about kryptonite. Like, I'm an idiot.
No.
I don't really know what I'd want to be as a superpower. I mean, I really like the idea of teleportation. I think that would be really dope to just appear wherever you want to be and then disappear right away, especially because then I don't have to worry about driving anywhere super late at night, and I could just materialize myself into my bed and not have to think about it. But when I was little, I used to have tons of dreams about flying. But when I was flying in my dreams, I would have to like swim breaststroke, and it was hard. I remember that. So I don't think I'd ever want to have the ability to fly. It seems hard.
What an interesting dream. You just take your high school sport into like a fantastical. That's great. Okay, so I chose something a little different, guys. With great power comes great responsibility, and I hate responsibility. So I feel like all of you guys chose something too good, where the government would find you and experiment on you.
They couldn't find me because I would be the snake with the scorpion tail.
And a donkey head.
They would find you guys, right? So I wanted to choose something like super minor. It wouldn't, I wouldn't ever have to worry about becoming one of the Avengers. So like one of the superpowers that comes to mind is just being able to know what somebody was going to say right before they said it. Just so I could like jinx people and get like free Coke, or like be able to just kind of like finish their sentences as like a fun party game.
You don't already know what people are saying or thinking before they say them? Like, that's just a talent of mine.
Talented. Okay.
Matt, you just want to be an annoying guy.
Check.
I like how his main worry is becoming an Avenger. Like, the second he gets a power,
they would take all of you guys in the Avengers. They would be like,
No.
Ben, we need money to fund our big ass.
But
buildings.
I couldn't get the money because it's a selfish power.
I don't know. I feel like they'd find a way. They would train you.
You would benefit from the world being saved, so you could save the world.
Right. Do a little mental gymnastics to get there.
I believe in you.
I was gonna do like lie detector, but then like I just started like being like, what about when your parents lie to you to make you feel better? You'd grow up so jaded.
And the Avengers are looking for a lie detector.
Yeah.
I mean, they'd want something like. But anyway, I just wanted something super minor. So I guess let's just talk about it. Have you guys seen this movie before? What were your impressions? Do you remember when and where you saw it?
Yeah, I was in 7th or 8th grade, and I went to the movie theater with a bunch of my girlfriends. I had like this group of elementary girlfriends that we all like hung out together in middle school and in high school. And we all went to go see this, and just dead silence in the movie theater as Harry was dying at the end. Spoilers. And as soon as Spider-Man's face was turning into a prune and crying, I lost my shit. I was laughing out loud, and it was dead silent except for me laughing. We all talked about it afterwards, but I mean, I generally enjoyed it the first time, but oh my God, his prune face.
Yeah, I feel like you nailed it. Everybody was just being nice because the movie just came out and everyone's like, Spider-Man 3, it's going to be great.
Well, and coming off how great Spider-Man 2 was, I know I was really excited to see this movie. Because Spider-Man 2 was at the time considered to be like the best superhero movie ever made. So I was like, okay, how are they going to top that? And I remember leaving the theater in Lakeville, because I went and saw it at midnight, just super disappointed in what I had seen. Probably because of expectations that I had put on the movie myself at the time.
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing this movie.
What's your power?
It happened!
Wow.
You can't make that shit up.
No, that was pretty good.
Go ahead, Wesley.
Why don't you go ahead for me?
Yeah, I don't remember seeing this either. I was too busy getting wasted every night in Japan, I think.
Didn't premiere heavily in Japan.
I mean, I'm sure they played it at the base or something, but I was just like, I don't know. Movies weren't on my mind. And I think when I eventually saw it, I was like, it was probably like 2010, maybe like a couple of years later on DVD. And I was just like, this was the thing. This was the thing that made all the money. All right. But overall, I just didn't remember anything. And I didn't remember Peter crying. I only remembered how he traps Venom.
I know I had seen it before this because I have vivid memories of the infamous dance scene and stroking his hair in front of his face like a true emo boy. That's about it. So I probably watched it one late night at college when me and some fellow roommates used to just stay up until like 10 a.m. when breakfast was served, and then we would go to bed.
Let's talk about Spider-Man 3 then. Act 1 starts with Peter Parker, played by Tobey Maguire, and he is content to be the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man and wants to propose to Mary Jane, played by Kirsten Dunst, sometime after her Broadway debut. However, new villains are on the move. An extraterrestrial symbiote follows Peter home. Harry Osborn, played by James Franco, seeks revenge for his father's death, and Flint Marko, played by Thomas Hayden Church, accidentally becomes the Sandman, wreaking havoc on the city to get the money to save his dying child. Harry gets amnesia from fighting with Peter, and Spider-Man kisses Gwen Stacy at a parade, stroking his ego while simultaneously hurting MJ.
So much to dislike.
Peter. What the fuck? Peter.
There are so many plot points in this movie and so many villains.
Yeah.
Unnecessary.
Let's start off at the beginning.
Yeah, you mean where we
With
had
the credits.
like a 2-minute intro scene to everything that's happened in this franchise so far?
Yeah, I didn't need to have seen the first two to understand what was going on in this one, because they basically just played all the highlights.
Yep.
Yeah, flashback down in the credits.
I'm glad that you all understood that because I was having a hard time following some of it, actually.
What did you think this was all new information that they were just trying to slide in?
I
Wait
knew
a
that
second.
it was
Are you telling me there's a 1 and 2?
I hated when Peter was watching the videos of himself in Times Square and telling a group of unattended children to stick around for a few more minutes because the clip will replay. Like, what even is that?
Was that your experience when you came to New York, Wesley? When you and Ben went to Times Square? Did
Yeah,
you?
Spider-Man told us to stick around for a while.
Yeah, we were the children just wandering.
Some guy being like, hey, that's me up there on that advertisement billboard, or I don't know.
Okay, well, let's talk about the villains because there's a ludicrous amount of villains in Spider-Man comics just generally. Most of them are named after animals, actually. There's like a hippopotamus, there's a rhino, there's scorpion, there's
Goblin.
grizzly, obviously Green Goblin, there's jackal, hammerhead. There are just a ridiculous amount of them. And I actually learned that not only were a lot of them named after animals for whatever stupid reason, but a lot of them were scientific accidents, which explains a little bit of this movie.
Well, okay, so that gets me into one of my first gripes about Flint's backstory of being Sandman. Like, it seems like his entire story is that he's unlucky and terribly
Dressed?
No, that shirt was rocking.
Oh, shut up.
I would shapeshift into that shirt in a heartbeat.
Just the shirt, not the man.
Just to be worn by THC, Thomas Hayden Church, who from here on out will just be mentioned as THC from this man.
Is that a drug?
That's the chemical in marijuana.
There we go. My brain is not working.
I wonder why.
Oh, okay. Let's move on.
Just kidding. But you mentioned scientific experience, and the reason that Flint turns into Sandman is because he is, I believe, running from cops and falls into a giant building full of sand where...
A science hole.
Yeah, a science hole is perfect.
He hops a single fence.
Yeah. So I have no idea what they're doing. I don't think they explained it at all. And then when the people who are monitoring this experiment say, there's been a change in the molecular mass, they say it's probably a bird. He'll fly away when they fire it up. Like, that's some pretty awesome safety protocol. But what is this experiment? Like, that's like you said, science experiments are a big core behind turning people into villains and heroes. But this seemingly is just like, hey, there's sand here and big whirling lights.
I mean, it's supposed to be a particle accelerator. Why they're doing it on sand, I have no idea.
And why
How do you know
like
it's a particle
focusing
accelerator?
a single point and not like a, vacuum tube?
Ben, science me. What is a particle accelerator?
It's an accelerator of particles.
It makes particles go fast.
Yeah, it's usually a contained chamber that just increases the speed of particles to test various scientific principles.
Smash them together.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. How cool would this movie have been, though, if it was a bird in there and the bird became Sandbird?
I feel like a lot of these villain names are also just like pronoun man or like pronoun animal. Like,
well,
so
I've got
funny.
Mr. Negative, I've got Hydro Man, I've got Hobgoblin, Alistair Smythe, Kingpin. So some of them are for sure, but not all of them.
Okay.
I mean, before we get too far out of this, him coming back to life as Sand was definitely very cool. I enjoyed that animation very much.
Yeah.
But I immediately had questions of how does Sand have eyes and what makes the sand particles in his leg different from his mouth? How did he change the color of the sand?
How did he hold the locket?
Right. Ben, science answer me.
Well, I mean, I had the same issues. Like, how can his arm be hard enough to punch Spider-Man through a door and then be soft enough to where Spider-Man can kick his legs off?
Right.
Like, it doesn't make sense. It's inconsistent.
No. And throughout the movie, he at one point like tilts his head and sand comes out of his ear. Like, isn't that what makes up his body? Like, how is he just losing sand, and why isn't it also shapeshifted?
Yeah, I think when you see the actual form of him, it's him compressing the sand so tightly that it can create detail in a person.
So
tight. But then all of a sudden at the end, he's just a giant sand monster that doesn't look like THC.
And can fly?
I mean,
No.
Wind is one of the main pollinators.
No. Hard no.
How fine does the grain of sand have to be in order for him to control it as well? Can he control, or is it just only the sand in that experiment that he can control?
I
or
think
is
we're
it...
thinking way too hard about
No, because
this.
he picks up more sand when he's in that dump truck, which, by the way, the cop who was chasing him into the dump truck was just going to straight up murder a guy with a shovel before he knew anything, because he was just going to stab the sand with a shovel.
No, but the CGI
Yeah,
animation shows when he's in the particle accelerator, the sand penetrating his DNA and turning his DNA into like a silica-based DNA. So
You're
Whatever.
smiling like you're onto something.
he is capable of just being he is sand.
He should have,
Okay,
when he
but
was
how
in
can
that
sand
dump truck,
fly?
he should have just continued to be sand. And then they would have like walked away and been like, where did he go?
We are moving on to a different villain because there's so
Okay.
many of them. So Harry Osborn, I was really confused with where his hatred came from, actually, because I didn't remember, even in all the stupid little flashbacks in the beginning, I didn't remember that he knew who Spider-Man was. Like, I didn't remember that was revealed to us in Spider-Man 2.
That first fight scene was awful, in my opinion. The graphics were terrible and jarring and just seemed like ways to trick you into think that more was going on than actually was. And then him getting a concussion afterwards was just seemed like the laziest way out of it.
I would agree with you in the most part. Some of the shots in the fight were really cool when it was provided the space to kind of allow the camera to move. I think when it got into the alleyway, it just started moving so fast that the CGI couldn't render fast enough to look realistic. Like
Right.
that alleyway in particular looks terrible.
Yeah, that was my biggest problem.
You're right. In the city, it looks so much cooler because they are like following them, swinging around with Spider-Man,
Mhm.
and that space just makes it look even cooler in how the action is moving with that momentum.
I hated, though, that they needed to add the ring in there
Yes.
with those random shots, just so that there was some sort of emotional weight to the fight. Like,
Right.
it didn't need that. It should have
It
been
already
carried
had
by
emotional weight.
the characters.
It also felt like when 3D movies started coming out, where they would just shoehorn something into the action to make it seem more impressive for the time. So I don't remember.
This wasn't 3D.
No, I know, but
Okay.
at the time, did the ring add to the action because that's where CGI was? Like, it actually did look cool, and now just looking back on it, it looks bad.
I don't know. My main problem isn't with the CGI of it. It's with the story use of it. That
Yeah.
it just feels shoehorned in, that they had to do that entire scene with Aunt May just to provide the emotional weight for having the ring in the first place.
Right. It seemed completely disjarring going back and forth between, like, there's this conflict between Peter and Harry at the Broadway musical with Mary Jane singing, and you kind of see a little bit of an inkling at it where he's looking at him, and then it cuts to them making out, and then it cuts to, like, Aunt May, and then it cuts to, oh, suddenly it's a fight. You know, it just seems really jarring to me. Also, I really wanted to calculate out how much time it would take for the ring to fall to see if it actually made sense for him to catch it.
I would have loved that.
I didn't, because I'm a little lazy, but I wanted to.
Our gripes with this film are hilarious.
I know this movie had to do a lot of reshoots because the first cut of it was complained about having not enough action. So I almost wonder if that ring scene was one of the things they added in later to provide more action to the story, because it does feel very shoehorned in and almost like, hey, we've got this first act with no action. We need to have something in there.
Yeah. Or it's like, how does he get amnesia without
Right.
that action though? This is my question.
When you
for
do
that hypothesis.
take out that piece, you think about the beginning of the movie. It is pretty slow. I mean, Mary J. singing.
What? Dude, a Broadway play? That's awesome.
She's terrible. She should have been fired.
Okay, so did you all know this, that there was actually supposed to be a fourth villain in this movie?
No.
So we had
That's
Marco,
so sad.
and we had Harry, and we had Eddie Brock, which we didn't really talk about, who is technically Venom, but doesn't get mentioned by name in the entire movie. But Ben Kingsley was supposed to be the Vulture in Spider-Man 3.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Because we don't have enough plot points and we don't have enough villains. Let's just add even more to them. So I just thought it was really interesting that, at least in my perspective, you know, I was doing a little bit of research on this. Sam Raimi, sorry. He's a huge fan of comic books, and he really honors the structure of them, especially with the different shots. And, you know, Spider-Man, the series, these three movies were kind of the biggest superhero movies of the time. Like, they were the ones that kind of structured what superhero movies were going to look like from that point on, these big blockbusters. But he really brings the characters to life. And I truly think he meant, since there was supposed to be a Spider-Man 4, I think he really meant to have this split into two movies, because he does really care about the emotional value of the characters. I feel like Eddie Brock's whole Venom thing was supposed to happen in a different movie. You know, this whole Harry and Marco thing should have happened in just the first movie. I don't know. Did anyone else feel like it just kind of...
Yeah, I mean, the runtime supports that for sure. This movie's so long and just like so many characters across the board. Yeah, I mean, like, based on my research, I recall like they weren't going to have Venom in this, but they added him late. It's just wild. And it sounded like there's so many cooks in the kitchen when it came to this film, just because it was such a blockbuster that he kind of lost control of the vision.
And then they kept on adding side characters that would just kind of be introduced suddenly. Like, even Eddie Brock was just like appeared out of nowhere. And Gwen Stacy, who is supposed to be Peter's first love and the one that dies, and that's why he has a really hard time with relationships and has a really tough time with MJ. They're just kind of thrown at you.
I actually, about Gwen Stacy, I had read that she was actually supposed to be the love interest for this entire trilogy, but MJ was so popular that they just kept her through the entire thing.
I can understand that point of view if Sam Raimi just kind of got lost in the too many cooks idea. except for the fact that this is the one Spider-Man movie that he has a writing credit on. Like he was the one writing this story, and his brother. Yeah, nepotism. But like this is the movie that should have been most Raimi like, because he had his hands in the writing of it. So I think maybe Raimi doesn't have a good handle on what a comic book movie should be.
Interesting.
And he just, I don't know, maybe got too full of himself or wanted to do more than he was capable of.
I think there was a lot of pressure from the producer too, though. I think I read something where the producer, not someone related to him, I don't think, was putting some pressure on adding more to the film, where Sam Raimi wanted to do a little bit more of the emotional piece of Peter and take him as a character and stretch him out a little bit more. I don't know if all of you know this about Peter Parker. He's kind of the favorite in a lot of comics. Like, he is really, really a strong character for a lot of people. Like, everyone loves him because he goes through so much sacrifice, and he's always like dealing with so much crap. Like, every single time, he never has like a brief moment of happiness. It's always just like more and more shit that he's dealing with. Mm-hmm. And so I think that was kind of what Sam Raimi wanted to do, is to focus on the more emotional pieces of it. And
that includes 4 dance scenes?
Obviously.
Well, he didn't write Spider-Man 1 and 2, according to Wikipedia.
No, he didn't. Yeah,
that's what Ben said.
Ben, I can't believe you're going after Drag Me to Hell guy. Like, you're just going hard at him. Are you excited for him doing Doctor Strange coming up in 2022? He's directing it. He didn't write it.
Okay. All right. Well, so continuing on with the movie, Peter Parker fights Sandman, and then Peter and Aunt May learn that Marco, the Sandman, is the one that actually killed Uncle Ben, which launches motives of revenge that allows the symbiote to attach itself to Peter's Spidey suit, enhancing Peter's powers, but also bringing out his confident dark side. Peter's life starts unraveling around him, with MJ breaking up with him, Eddie Brock, played by Topher Grace, taking over as the head photographer, and Harry recovering from his amnesia to continue his plan of vengeance.
So you mentioned the thing that bothered me most about this movie, and that's the rewriting history by making Flint Marko the one that killed Uncle Ben.
Yeah.
I hated that. And I hate the idea that every villain of Spider-Man has to have some sort of personal connection to Spider-Man. Like, I don't understand why Sandman has to be someone from Peter's past. Can't he just be a bad guy in the city that he needs to take down?
Yeah, or he could do something to wrong him in the movie versus like a flashback.
Right.
Because that's what they did in the new Spider-Man reboots, like he's lied to by Jake Gyllenhaal, and that's like a betrayal of trust. So like that weighs just as much as those weird flashbacks, which I feel I would agree with you don't fit.
With rewriting Flint as the real killer, doesn't that make Spider-Man's whole reason for being a superhero invalid? Like, his whole reason for wanting to defend the innocent was because he let the guy go that killed his uncle. But if he let the guy go that didn't kill his uncle, isn't his whole origin story not important anymore?
In the flashback, he lets the guy go by letting him fall to his death?
No, he lets him run by him because the wrestling promoter doesn't pay him for winning his wrestling match. So the wrestling promoter is getting robbed, and then the guy that's robbing him runs by and he says, "Thanks."
Yeah, he's talking about before Uncle Ben even dies, that had Peter done something and stopped the guy, Uncle Ben wouldn't have been dead. But this negates that because Flint still would have shot him. But then we end up finding out that Flint didn't actually shoot him. Like, it's just so convoluted and ridiculous.
It's a toss up for me between that rewriting of who killed his uncle and amnesia as a plot device, between what I hate the most.
Right.
Two really bad.
Well, I think in this movie, it was really supposed to be an arc of forgiveness, even though Aunt May like really threw that in your face in the third act later. But I don't know, like obviously I think it could have been written better, but it really captured Peter's confidence and how the symbiote was like really throwing that out into the world. But Peter is such an introvert and not a good person at the whole communicating. He's an introvert, right? He's an introvert. He's just a nerdy introvert. And he's a potato, like Ben said to me earlier. But the symbiote takes any little confidence he has as Spider-Man and puts him in as Peter Parker. So everyone's like, what the fuck is with this guy? Like, this is not okay. They're all uncomfortable.
What do you guys think of emo Spider-Man?
I want to go ahead and say I love the description confident dark side. It's something that I would aspire to, but you know, emo Spider-Man just needs a haircut and I would have been into it, the entire thing. I
mean, if he had some eyeliner, I would have 100% been all for that.
Right.
He still looks like a potato, just a potato with eyeliner.
Yeah, potatoes can be hot though.
Hot potato.
Exactly.
One of the villains in the comic books is Black Cat, and she is obsessed with Spider-Man's confidence and like who he is as Spider-Man, and just like fawns all over him. But as soon as he takes off his mask, she's completely uninterested in Peter Parker. She thinks he's just a potato. And so I think that the symbiote does a great job of still capitalizing on Peter's true character as being just like this weird introvert and, I don't know, truly a nerdy guy, but takes the one piece from Spider-Man and tries to mash it in. Because Spider-Man, when he's Spider-Man, he's a completely different persona.
I think the confident dark side also ends up being what I believe Ben told me was his favorite part of this movie, where he is in the hallway talking on the phone with his landlord and landlord's daughter, and he is just like telling her to go make a new batch of cookies for him while he's on the phone. And
no, the best, this guy, the guy, what is his name, Mr. Ditkovich. He's like, where's the rent? Give me the rent.
You'll get your rent when you fix the damn door. Love that line. Love that scene.
Oh my gosh.
Mr. Ditkovich for the win.
Matt, you lived in Queens. Did your door not shut either?
You know, I wish I was that confident with my dark side.
You're not answering the question.
Yeah, every door is bad in Queens. Come on. But the landlords aren't that cool. They don't.
You heard it here first.
I read an explanation of confident dark side Spider-Man as that being what Peter Parker envisions cool to look like. Like, so he's a nerdy guy, and that's when he thinks of cool, that's what he thinks of. So that's why it's what came out.
Yeah, I had read something similar when I had to do research about why this dancing happened at all. And the reason that it's such an uncomfortable dance is because kind of what you're saying, Ben, where it's not that it is a cool dance, it's that the nerdy, unconfident, real Spider-Man, that's what he believes is the cool dance of being cocky and misogynist and just pure sex.
Pure sex.
Potato sex.
What about that failed marriage proposal? Oh my God, what was he thinking?
It was all due to the failed chemistry between all the characters in this movie. That's why.
Before we get into that,
are you talking about the one on the bridge after he's been dumped and his like Hail Mary?
No,
the ring out? Is that what you're talking about?
Both of them.
Is that even a romantic gesture to put a ring into a drink? Like, that's
maybe 100 years ago when it was first done.
Like,
it just sounds
here's
dangerous.
a surprise. Here's a tainted drink. Now put this wet ring on your finger and let's be together forever.
It'd be sticky. I don't want to do that.
Meanwhile, I've kissed another lady today and you saw it.
I don't know. I think the writing didn't help the characters, but the actors did not help the chemistry between the characters either. Like, some of these are really good actors. You know, what the hell, James Franco? Like, what was that this time?
Seriously, my best friends. James Franco had some of the worst line deliveries probably of his career in this movie. I don't know if he didn't want to be in this movie or what, but it was uncomfortable. And I mean, now that he's done Disaster Artist and been Tommy Wiseau, I can't see him without doing like the, oh, hi, Spider-Man.
Yeah. Yeah. He probably realized the movie was going to be bad halfway through and he was just going through the motions.
Well, I think he was making Pineapple Express around this same time, so he might have just been high 24/7 also.
Oh.
Like,
You think so?
the actors in this movie were given pretty crap to deal with. I wrote down at one point that the writing in this movie it reminds me of like a Curb Your Enthusiasm episode or Life and Times of Tim, especially during the proposal scenes, and just everything that Peter could do wrong, he did. And I don't know. I couldn't get over it from that point where I was just like, this, it's got all of those tropes from that type of show where it's just written to have the protagonist fail, but it wasn't funny and it didn't pay off.
I didn't think of that at all. I was actually thinking that like the writers saved the best parts for the side characters. Like they didn't care about and maybe that's kind of related to what you were saying, that they saved like the good funny parts for the side characters because the rest of it was supposed to be like a drama or something.
Which do you have any examples of?
Well, Elizabeth Banks is like the best side character in this entire movie.
Or J.K. Simmons. I think them as a duo.
But to counter that, the Topher Grace character of Eddie Brock is probably the worst written character in this movie.
Yes.
Like his introduction scene where he just pops up out of nowhere and introduces himself to Gwen Stacy's dad. It's like the worst character introduction I've ever seen. Like it's just so unnatural.
That's because you're not a photographer, Ben. That's how you have to introduce yourself in the field.
I'm dating your daughter.
Yeah, you just show up with a camera and go, oh, by the way, I'm dating your daughter.
And it's applicable for everybody because photographers get all the chicks.
Well,
that's Wesley's response. Oh boy. As we finish up this movie, Peter Parker realizes that the symbiote is taking over and he separates himself from it. But Brock somehow bonds with it. Brock and the Sandman plan to destroy Spider-Man for good, kidnapping MJ in a taxi. Spider-Man begs Harry to help him and leaves to save MJ. A battle between good versus weirdly motivated villains ensues, ending with Brock dying from his obsession with the symbiote, Harry dying from saving Peter, and Marco being blown away by the wind. The end of the movie.
The best Thanos snap of all time. Just Thomas Hayden Church.
THC, come on.
Sometimes you got to pay respect.
And I just want to go ahead and add like that Butler scene with Harry, just like convincing him.
Wait.
He's like, hey, you know what? Spider-Man actually is good, so maybe you guys are friends or whatever. Like,
I saw your father die. It was from himself.
So,
but it's the same thing as the police chief holding off on telling Aunt May and Peter that Uncle Ben was killed by Flint Marko. Like he was sitting on that information for 2 years and then told him now just because.
Yeah.
This fight scene at the end of the movie, to me, it was so dumb. And I wanted it to be really good. There were so many parts where they would jump back and forth between like some sort of intense moment, and then they would jump to something that was not so intense, you know, where they're like talking to each other in the middle of a fight, or there's J.K. Simmons talking to a little girl with a camera, and it just took away from the momentum of the fight.
Just the fact that there's so many civilians watching this happen underneath dangerous dump trucks full of cinder blocks, like 10 stories up in the air, like that makes no sense.
Mm-hmm. It's honestly very Michael Bay-esque.
Yeah.
If you think back to the way that he did the same thing in Transformers, like I think that's Raimi trying to capitalize on just the way that Michael Bay shoots action scenes.
Do they have a relationship or something? Like, do they know each other?
No, but I mean,
I don't know.
All artists copy each other. Like you look for inspiration in the things you see and incorporate it into your own vision.
That's what, Matt, you do for your comedy, right?
Yeah, just a rehashing.
All his jokes are based on Kevin Hart jokes.
Yeah, I don't know. It was just wild that end fight scene. I think you're onto something with like how often you'd be in the middle of action and then it's like, meanwhile, back at the farm, and it's just J.K. Simmons fucking trying to get a camera off a girl, and you're like, this is its own outtake. This is an outtake scene you're showing us that should not be in the middle of this fight.
I mean, I loved some of the visual effects. I actually really like how Venom works around Eddie Brock's face. I think that's really cool. And, how it comes back together. I also really like some of the big wide shots that they do sweeping with Venom and Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But I really do not like some of the music choices in this. The Sandman's theme, in my opinion, is the dumbest. Like, this big lumbering giant is kind of the theme. But way back in the beginning of the movie, the music was kind of this mysterious, mystical piece when he's trying to figure himself out and put himself together. But then they change him into this big lumbering dummy that is just punching holes and things because he's a petty criminal.
You need to check your tone when you're insulting Mr. THC like that.
Well, here's what I was thinking. So Danny Elfman was originally doing the music for the first and second Spider-Man, and he did not return for Spider-Man 3. I don't know why, creative differences. But even the visual effects guy, John Dykstra, he has an Oscar both for the visual effects in Spider-Man 2 and then an Oscar for Star Wars, the original Star Wars, for visual effects. He didn't come back after Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2. And I don't know, did anyone feel a difference from 1 to 2 and to 3 in those categories?
I think the budget grew in 3, but I think I would agree with you. I mean, just referencing the music, like one of my favorite videos is this video essay from a YouTube channel called Every Frame of Painting. And it talks about the Marvel the symphonic universe and how generic it was. And a problem with a lot of the music was they would try to replicate things that had come before it using temp tracks. So I think you're onto something there with the music, because it's like every scene just tries to tell you how to feel in every little note. And it's not bad. It's not good. It's just, it keeps on telling you how to feel. I almost said the wrong thing.
Matt, can you explain what a temp track is?
Yeah, so a temp track is where you're doing your first edit as a director and you haven't gotten a chance to work with a composer yet. So you will take a temporary track, which is short for it, and you'll put it in, like, so let's say I love like a Shins song. Like, I would just put that in there knowing that the composer would go and change it to something similar to that. You're basically shoehorning them and taking away all of their creativity and like making them kind of like just replicate that. And
I'm sorry, you guys, I'm gonna completely just jump in, because the amount of times we have said shoehorn on this episode, y'all got to take a shot anytime you say shoehorn from now on.
I actually have a very fun way to bring that back around once we do our transition here.
I have a way to shoehorn that back in as well, Wesley.
Perfect. Woo. Matt, what were you
shot.
saying? I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay. But yeah, like this video essay on YouTube, it got so many views. It's up to 7 million now, and it came out 4 years ago. It changed the way that Marvel attacked their actual scoring of films. They have since done a much better job of making original scores that you can remember. The beginning of this video starts off with like, hey, do you know the theme to Star Wars? And people would hum it. Hey, do you know the theme to this? And then they'd hum it, like James Bond, hum it. And then like, it'd be like, how about any Marvel film? And people would just kind of stop. But I guess like Spider-Man had its original song from the cartoon, but beyond that, there was nothing.
Yeah, it's just how the themes overlap with each other. And, I think in this movie in particular, they attack some of the themes without layering them a ton. I just thought that was surprising. And even the CGI, the effects, the visual effects, like some of them, especially the first shot of the opening scene, the credits in the beginning of the movie, I remember that being way cooler than it actually is. Like, yeah, Venom, the symbiote crawling around on the ground was cooler than all of the Venom stuff in the beginning of the movie. It just seemed very different to me.
Agree with you there. Just it doesn't stand up to, 13 years later. Doesn't look that great.
Are we past the point where the female character has to be the damsel in distress? Like, can we progress as a movie society and not have that be the thing anymore? Because Mary Jane is literally captured in every Spider-Man movie, and she's the reason that Tobey Maguire has to go out.
Well, these 3 movies, yes.
Yeah, that's what even Amazing Spider-Man 2. That's the one where with Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy. Nope, that's Spider-Man Far From Home.
Oh.
The Andrew Garfield ones, like Gwen Stacy gets kidnapped in the first one. Mm-hmm. I mean, now that we're into the Marvel ones, they're doing a better job of getting Spider-Man involved without stealing his girl, I guess. But just in general, in movies, like why is that the go-to? Like, why is that the thing that sets the male in motion?
I actually really like all the different iterations and how they've changed and progressed. And I think it's all based off of so much of the comic book. The comic book has changed so much too. It is actually a continuous storyline. Marvel is continuous storyline. They have the multiverse. The main stuff happens on Earth 616. Yeah. But, I think that ever since Homecoming came out and Far From Home and Into the Spider-Verse, I think they're definitely shifting away from that damsel in distress and adding more female characters that have a little bit more control on the world instead of these women with no powers. So I don't know.
Is it regressive then for a movie to go back and do damsel in distress? Like, let's not even talk Spider-Man. Let's just say, like, in this time, is it still an appropriate thing to have be your inciting plot point?
I agree with you, Matt. It should be something really creative if that is happening. There's got to be some connection because Eddie doesn't know who MJ is. Sandman doesn't know who MJ is. How the hell do they figure this out? How do they know that Peter Parker is dating MJ and is Spider-Man?
Yeah, the story's got to be 100% airtight with like well-developed characters if you're going to do that. And you're probably just better off coming up with a more creative story outright because there's so many chances to fail when it comes to making a film that with that tried and tested damsel in distress, like it's old, it's tried and it's bad now.
It's tested.
It's tested. And it's bad.
I think any movie that does that, I think isn't going to be cleverly written because doing that tried and tested trope is just a sign of the laziness now. With how the greater Marvel universe has evolved and the scene in Endgame where it's all of the female superheroes fighting at once, and just in the past couple of Marvel movies that came out that have just amazing female superheroes and fighters who aren't doing it for any reason other than they're badass. I don't see how it would be acceptable to go backwards.
I would like to see something skewer that actual damsel in distress, like a parody movie, where they could kind of skewer every single bad thing that we've seen and kind of make fun of that trope. That would be a great parody movie, actually.
I would love to see a Mansell in distress.
I think that's been done before.
Yeah, probably, but let's do more of it.
Let's hear some reviews for this movie.
Ooh, can I go first?
Sure.
Can I?
Yeah.
So it's hard to believe this was one of the highest grossing films of all time. It does not stand the test of time, but it does offer itself up as a super shot of nostalgia. So long, and it makes me want to ugly cry just like the protagonist, which is all he's good at, that and dancing poorly. 2 out of 9 vibrating poles.
Ooh.
Were there actually 9 poles?
Vibrating poles are definitely good. Emily.
Yeah, Citizen Kane is 9 out of 9 vibrating poles.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, everything goes
Honestly,
on that scale.
I could not, for the life of me, think of what you were talking about. I immediately went to the American flag has a pole, and Spider-Man was like in front of it. And is that what you're? The poles from Venom. I get it now.
Yeah, that he thrusts into the concrete and somehow vibrate. Yeah, that makes sense.
I still thought it looked cool, and I thought it was a cool ending. But anyway, I thought Spider-Man 3 had a plot with too many overlapping storylines that would have honestly been better as just 2 movies. I thought the music and the CGI were just good enough in parts of the movie, but jarring in others. It was generally enjoyable as superhero movies go, but honestly, many of the side characters were more compelling than characters. Great for watching drunk with friends, though. I give it 22 out of the approximately 88 villains in the Spider-Man comics.
So that's a 1/4.
Yeah.
Just math wise, we're pretty close on our rating there.
All right. Watching this movie in 2020, an era of monster blockbuster superhero movies with huge budgets and special effects that have been consistently growing for decades, this one falls short in many ways. Too busy to follow or care, too ridiculous to feel connected, and such a large cast that even Game of Thrones fans would have trouble remembering who anyone is and why they're connected to the story. I'm happy it doesn't end the Spider-Man world, but I'm glad it was the last time we saw Mr. Maguire swinging through the streets of New York. I give this movie 4 out of 8 spider legs, because spiders have 8 legs and only half of them would be pretty frustrating to crawl around their web.
Okay. Spider-Man. More like Spider-Man. 7 cry wrinkles on Tobey Maguire's chin out of 10.
So this is a bad movie then?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Wesley, I'm so excited for the next part. Will you please tell us what we're doing next?
I'm very excited as well. So before we get into the fun and games, Emily and I came up with 6 of our own homebrewed amazing villain names. Now, I want both of you to rock, paper, scissors, and the winner is going to get to pick a number 1 through 6 first to determine who their villain is. So
nothing says great radio like rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah.
Just make sure you slap right into the microphone.
You got to say it, though. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
They both did scissors. You guys got to be fucking kidding me.
Paper, scissors, shoot.
You guys know you can go faster.
This is my superpower. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
No.
All right, Matt wins. Matt wins with the triumphant rock over
I choose
scissors.
number 1. Number 1, baby.
Oh, so close to the one I wanted you to have. All right, Matt, your supervillain's name is Gooseberry the Grimm.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Give me number 4.
Yay! Ben, your supervillain's name is Waffly Toast.
Okay.
Backstory, I made that one up today, and Wesley's like, yes, we're doing that one. I did it as a joke.
All right, now it's time for Battle of the Twits. I will sling 5 web rounds of questions that are less than Spidey spurts. Let them try to convince me who your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man is this week. The winner of each round will get 1 Spidey point. Second place gets 0 Spidey points. I will be more easily persuaded by the acrobatically creative and entertainingly bad CGI answers. After the cocky Peter Parker dances on the defeated, the loser will have to record themselves reenacting that famous Tobey Maguire dance. So any questions?
No.
Let's go.
Now you better start practicing.
So the loser of this first question will be scored immediately and will have to take a drink. So what is in the glasses?
I've got another can of blonde.
Different blonde?
Yep.
What kind?
Another shells.
Okay.
Another Gwyn.
Matt?
I've got another vodka cranberry with a splash of orange liqueur for no reason in it.
I was going to ask, have you turned around any inspiration at this point as to how that relates to this movie at all, since this is a movie podcast about drinking, where we drink things that relate to the movies?
I don't know. I literally don't know what I was thinking. I was just like, gotta add orange because orange.
Sand is orange.
There it is.
Little THC love. All right. So question 1. Like Doctor Who, James Bond, and Robin Hood, Spider-Man has had many actors portray the nimbly webbed spider slinger. With the Spider-Verse introducing a range of new spider beings, I think the next iteration should also take advantage of something new. So what should be the next iteration of Spider-Man be from a character type standpoint? And this week, we're going to start with Benjamin.
So superheroes in movies have a long tradition of being played by really fit and sexy people or being played by Tobey Maguire. However, 39% of the population is overweight, and it's time that we had a superhero who reflects the way that such a large segment of the population looks. So, even though we've been given Fat Thor, we were constantly reminded by the script that Thor was now fat, and he was basically fat-shamed that entire movie. So I want a fat Spider-Man, and I don't want any references in the movie to the fact that this Spider-Man is not super fit like a typical superhero. I don't want any Peter Porker jokes. I want no scenes of Spider-Man out of breath or webs breaking under the strain of his weight. I want no spider sense jokes when he notices that dessert is coming out. In addition to all those, I don't want any discussion by any of the characters about Spider-Man's body, and I don't want Spider-Man to be self-deprecating about his size. It's time that we send a body-positive message to children that superheroes come in all shapes and sizes, just like people.
Wow,
this will just be your typical friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, who just so happens to look like your average neighborhood watch member.
Matt was giving you a thumbs down.
Yeah.
What was that about?
Matt hates fat people. Boo. His biggest fear is being fat. Don't you remember that?
I do remember that.
Oh, wow.
Okay, Matt, your turn.
What haven't we seen before? What would the next most unexpected and delightful new Spider-Man, and what could it teach the next generation? I want our next Spider-Man to be the very first senior citizen Spider-Man. Okay, so in the Spider-Man series, Peter Parker goes from preteen body to super muscles and quick reactions real quick. That's kind of what growing up is all about. And only in Spider-Man, it happens super fast. But what about a senior citizen? That's something new and unexpected. They've seen some shit. They've been around the block. They're jaded by society, and their bodies are breaking down in general. But now they've got their muscles back. They've got their libidos back. And their penis is working again. Okay, so who's the most susceptible person to spiders? Old people. Now, these films would lead directly to Gen Z. Instead of saying, okay, boomer, they'd be like, wow, I really respect my elders now. So I'd like to see some old people as a Spider-Man.
Why are old people susceptible to spiders?
Yeah, I want to know that too.
Because they're slow and they live in decrepit areas.
What about fat people? They're slow too.
And honestly, probably have crumbs all over that attract the bugs.
Yeah.
Yeah, spiders don't like bugs. They like biting people. Or, I mean, they don't like crumbs. They like biting people. Oh, man. That's what happens when you stop down for 15 minutes. I just keep drinking. That's the problem.
My next follow-up question, Matt, is, do we know that Spider-Man's penis works?
Yeah, that's a good question.
That's a great point you're making.
No, that's a point you made.
I think a lot of it's insinuated that Spider-Man fucks. But I think it would just be cool to take a senior citizen and just be like, they weren't for sure before, but then like there'd be a scene when they came back and they'd be like, oh my God. You know, kind of like in Benjamin Button where he's like in the mirror.
Don't you dare. I don't want to hear anything about Benjamin
Does
Button.
Spider-Man's penis shoot webs?
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. The answer is yes, Matt, right?
Senior citizen webs.
I'm not going to comment. That's not what this movie's about.
Yes, it is. You say your old Spider-Man fucks.
You brought it up.
It would be
All right.
tasteful. Okay.
I have a quick question for both of you. How does this make it a better Spider-Man?
Yeah, we're shaping a new Gen. Gen Z is going to respect their elders.
It's all about representation.
Wesley, what do you think, bud?
I don't know. Neither of these were answers that I was anticipating. I'm gonna go gut reaction. Matt caught me off guard more, and I'm gonna give this one to Matt. So, senior citizen Spider-Man for the win. So Ben, take a big old gulp of that blonde. That Brock
Oh,
Blondie.
he is finishing it.
Oh, that was
Damn.
bottoms to the ceiling. Well done. I don't know if that's a saying.
It
is now.
It is now.
All right. So the second question will be a debate style question like we've done in the past, where you will argue your point and then have a chance to poke holes in your opponent's answer. So Tobey Maguire shows up on many top 10 worst crying faces when you Google such a strange list. But I want you to tell me who has the worst crying face in any movie. Matt, you're up first.
So I chose to go with Sylvester Stallone from Rocky 3 when he loses his trainer. Trainer's on his deathbed. Now, Sylvester Stallone, he's a man, and men should never cry, especially in sports. So his face looks not only ugly that he's crying, but also that he's beat up. His eye is practically popping out of his socket, and he knows how gross he looks because he tries to hide his face for a majority of the scene. So I chose Sylvester Stallone taking this scene from a heartfelt goodbye to his trainer to this over-the-top comedy because he can barely get his words out.
Okay. Ben?
Natalie Portman has the worst cry face in a movie, and there are tons of choices for movies with Natalie Portman crying because she cries in like every movie she's in. But I specifically want to focus on her cry face in Garden State, and specifically the hamster funeral scene because it's the perfect storm of bad cry acting. Her face scrunches up like a Shar-Pei. Her eyebrows somehow form the shape of two smiles, contorting in a way that no eyebrows should be able to. Her eyes start blinking really fast in an effort to produce tears, and when that fails, we see her strain and turn her face downward in an attempt to obscure that she's trying so hard to cry as she attempts to just leak a couple bits of water from her eyes. Add to that what she chooses to do with her blubbering noises that she makes, and the pseudo-intelligent and not at all meaningful dialogue that spills out of her mouth. It's so tragic, isn't it? It's like real-life tragedy or something. Gross. A more toned-down performance would have fit the scene better, as her cry face takes away from the central emotion of the scene, which is the audience relating to the journey that Zach Braff's character is on. Not only is it ridiculous looking, but it detracts from the movie and the intention of the scene. Now, I watched the scene that Matt's talking about from Rocky 3, and I was actually legitimately impressed by Stallone's cry face because of his ability to emote through that makeup that obstructed his eyes and cheeks. His wailing was a little much, but his face was spot on for someone crying through brain damage. That's a legitimately sad thing that happened to him when his trainer died, and I hate that Matt's trying to perpetuate toxic masculinity by saying that men don't cry.
Oh, snap. Matt, what you got?
Wow. Well, there's a lot to unpack there, but men don't cry, Ben. And if you've ever cried before, shame on you.
Really digging the heels in.
You got like 45 seconds. Let's go.
Okay, so let's just unpack this. Natalie Portman in this movie, she's a compulsive liar in this movie. And how do we know these emotions aren't even real? I feel like her crying could have been fake in such a way that she was trying to manipulate Zach Braff. And you know what? It's okay to cry in a pet cemetery. That's the only place it is okay to cry. And, my final point, girls are actually hot when they cry. Men are the opposite.
Oh, my God.
Wow.
Wow.
And just to dig my heels in there, Sylvester Stallone, he can't even get his words out. We don't understand what he's saying, So his face is doing a majority of the lifting, and it's not a lot.
I don't think that that's unique to Sylvester Stallone crying, but
It legitimately scares me that Matt's radar goes up sensing opportunity when he sees a woman cry. Like that's very Predator-like. I don't think that you can say that Natalie Portman was manipulating Zach Braff because she's portrayed as this emotional free spirit. So the fact that she cries so freely is in contrast to Zach Braff, who says he doesn't cry at all. So that's why she's crying, not to manipulate him, as you tried to imply.
okay.
Wow, Wesley, we had some.
Oh, that's an easy one.
Yeah, that was. Matt's face. No
Respect
reaction.
without the Respect without the results.
Another win in the column.
All right, so before we started, we gave both of you two beautifully crafted villains' names. And
one which I spent a lot of time on.
Yes, same. I think we both had one of our names picked, so I'm glad we both are represented in this answer.
Yeah.
So now I want to hear your villain's backstory, which should include their real name, their origin, and their connection to Spider-Man. So Ben, let us hear about Waffly Toast.
Waffly Toast was first known as Wally Loaf, a normal diner cook until the day of the science incident. While working his diner solo during a Monday evening shift, Wally felt a surge of energy from the toaster sitting on his counter that he was using to make himself a snack, an Eggo. As he approached to inspect the toaster, in the toaster he saw the face of a black being with white eyes and the frosted tips of a 20-something photographer. That's Venom and Eddie Brock for those who did not watch Spider-Man 3. The energy exploded outward when the Eggos popped out of the toaster, causing his skin to rapidly burn and form indents all over his body. Along with the deformation, he also was imbued with the hatreds and rivalries present in the two toaster spirits, mainly a hatred for Peter Parker. He also got the ability to toast his opponents through the use of microwave radiation, which he's able to harness through the use of his waffle iron. He also found that he was able to regenerate his body from even a single crumb of his form. Also, he probably killed Uncle Ben. I don't fucking know.
I didn't hear that last part. He killed Uncle Ben.
Probably.
Probably.
Possibly.
Probably IDK.
Perhaps.
Okay, Matt. Let us hear the backstory of Gooseberry the Grimm.
In the 1920s, New Yorkers grew 2,700 acres of gooseberries. These days, they are fairly a rare sight because they've been illegal until recently in 2003. So my character's name, his real name, is Mayor Warren Wilhelm Jr., but he would have to change it to something much more Italian to gain the trust of the voters. His origin story: birds stole this guy's crop and he lost everything. His wife, his kids, and he lost all of the income to his gooseberry farms. You guys didn't know? Birds are predators to the gooseberry. A very real fruit, I just found out. So he changed his name to something much more Italian, Bill de Blasio, and became the mayor of New York City, where he could change all of the gooseberry laws in this fucking city. So he used Flint Marko, aka the Sandman, as a hitman to kill anybody that stepped in the way of his gooseberry legislation. So he was the driving force in Spider-Man 3 for the NYPD commissioner to keep it a secret, and as an evil man who lies through his teeth, and his superpower is manipulation of emotions. That would make the end of Spider-Man 3 make more sense when Sandman disavowed his evil master, and that would make the forgiveness of Peter Parker become more compelling. Bill de Blasio, baby.
I don't understand Matt's. I think I'm missing something. What am I missing?
Bill de Blasio's real name is Warren Wilhelm Jr. He changed his name completely for political.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
All right, question 4. Now you will debate each other's new villain as Spider-Man, and you will go back and forth with how your villain will defeat Spider-Man. So Matt, you are Spider-Man. How will you defeat Waffly Toast?
Did you or did you not kill my Uncle Ben?
That's irrelevant. I mean, that's irrelevant.
Where is it? Why do you hate me, bro? Why do you hate me? Like none of what you're doing makes any sense.
I mean, my motivation is not going to be the reason that you defeat me, but my motivation is that I have been given the hatred that was within Eddie Brock and Venom towards you.
It doesn't
so now
make
I
sense.
also hate you.
It doesn't
it's
make
science,
sense,
bro. It's science,
it
bro.
It doesn't make sense. You know what else doesn't make sense? Your superpowers, pal. I'm just gonna web shoot at your shit, and what are you gonna do? Microwave it?
Nope. The holes in my skin trap webs.
No, they don't.
Like
no,
waffles
they don't.
trap syrup.
Nuh-uh, bitch.
No, they do. They do.
I got your ass.
No.
Yeah, I could just tie you down with my webs, and I'll just talk to your mom. I'll just tell her what a terrible person you've been.
Well, joke's on you. My mom died. part of my backstory you didn't hear because you didn't care to ask.
Fine, I'll talk to your aunt.
Oh, don't. She's not a nice person.
I'll talk to your caregiver. How old are you anyway, kid?
Look, you can't beat me. Your webs do nothing to me.
That's not true. I could sense what you're about to say, baby.
Because of your spidey sense or because of Matt's power?
No, because of my spidey sense.
Man, bro, you just can't beat me. Like, I'll just regenerate if you even try to take me down.
Yeah, right. I'll just
Crumbs, baby.
I'll put you in an oven. You didn't even think of that, you dumb toaster, a waffle iron.
I harness microwave energy.
Ovens aren't toasters.
Wow.
That was interesting.
That was very interesting.
I agree with that sentiment. So now let's turn it around.
Okay.
Ben, you're Spider-Man. How are you going to defeat Gooseberry the Grimm or Bill de Blasio?
Bill de Blasio is you just said he's a bad man. Like, no, I'm gonna web his ass and then punch him through a wall.
Are you talking to me, Bill de Blasio? Because I have many powerful enemies that will crush you.
I can get past them.
Yeah, I know, but I've got people holding Mary Jane hostage. I've got your aunt and uncle.
How do you know who I am? How do you have my uncle's dead? Sorry.
Well, you don't know that for sure, baby.
Look, you said your guy manipulates emotions.
Yeah.
How is that going to affect me as Spider-Man?
Because I have tons of powerful enemies, baby. I don't know why I say baby. I'm just assuming Bill de Blasio says baby.
Look, Bill de Blasio has no powers. The second Spider-Man got his hands on him, he'd destroy him.
Yeah, maybe Bill de Blasio, a.k.a. me.
Your guy has no powers!
Gooseberry the Grimm, but I control other people, dude. I'm coming at you.
But you don't control me.
Sure, but I control the people that you hold dear.
How?
Spider-Man.
How?
Yeah. Well, Mary Jane, she goes to school.
How do you know who I am? How do you know I'm Peter Parker?
I'm the mayor of New York. I know everything.
Look, Bill de Blasio is just a normal person. He would have no chance against Spider-Man.
Yeah,
this is ridiculous that Matt's even trying to defend himself.
Yeah, I've got the state vision on your ass, dude. Facial recognition technology.
And time.
God damn it.
Okay.
What the fuck was that?
Baby.
Baby.
I got your ass, baby.
Oh.
All right, let's wrap this up, Wesley, with the last question.
Yeah, thank you, Emily, for keeping us on this straight and narrow. So
keeping us honest.
Everybody's favorite question 5. I want you to pitch a reboot, prequel, or sequel to Spider-Man 3, which already has a prequel and a reboot. But I want you to include a pitch for a fight scene in your movie and how you would minimally use CGI. Matt, you're up first.
So I choose to go prequel. So, yeah, everybody wants to know about an orphan raised by Aunt May and Uncle Ben in New York City after his parents, Richard and Mary Parker, were killed in a plane crash, right? So I want to see that this character has to deal with the struggles of adolescence and financial issues. This isn't actually a superhero movie, but it's going to be closer to The Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Just a kid going through his problems in middle school. So just to answer your question, minimal CGI, it's going to be a fight scene in middle school. You don't need Michael Bay effects or anything like that in there. We're just going to have just our protagonist, Peter Parker's just going to hit the pavement, right? But there's so much to unpack there. What about his parents? We know nothing about them. Why were they traveling? Why did they blow up on that plane crash? Were they rich? Does Peter remember his parents at all? We need to know that. And that should be told through storytelling device of his diary. Now, I feel like this would be the backstory that we all crave before his ass got bit by a dirty old spider. You know, like old people are susceptible to. Maybe we could develop some of those characteristics of Peter Parker, that sweet boy that always does the right thing. You know, it's just that friggin' prequel, just a tween trying to make his way in the middle school world with his dead-ass parents.
Wow. Okay.
Truly dead-ass parents.
Yeah, Dead ass.
Wow.
Interesting. Okay. And next we're going to go with Ben.
It's no secret who my favorite part of this movie was, and I need a sequel built around my favorite character. So the title of my movie is Doors of Prey and the Worktastic Restoration of One Door by Mr. Ditkovich. This movie will take place the day after the events of Spider-Man 3, as Mr. Ditkovich has taken to heart Peter's pleas to fix the damn door. The movie will follow Mr. Ditkovich and his daughter to the hardware store where he's set to gather the tools and supplies necessary to fix the door. The hardware store that he's at, though, is held up by Waffly Toast, and his daughter's taken hostage. Mr. Ditkovich, in order to find and save his daughter, must become someone he said he would never be again, Kraven the Hunter. Ditkovich gathers up two of his old allies to hunt down and infiltrate the lair where his daughter's being held, which also happens to be a door factory. The big fight scene would happen at the door factory along an assembly line type set up similar in style to the doors of Monsters, Inc.
Yes.
As Kraven and his allies fight Waffly Toast, we see the microwave energy of Waffly Toast causing the doors to move and sway and fly at our heroes. This would be done through practical effects as the doors would be moved by wires.
Let's check that box that you appease that answer.
Thank you. Kraven would be firing his rifle at Waffly Toast and blasting doors out of his way. Eventually, Kraven would overcome Waffly Toast by pancaking him between two large metal doors. The movie ends with Mr. Ditkovich taking a new door from the door factory and installing it into Peter's apartment so he can get his rent money.
Wow. Waffly Toast defeated that easily? Okay.
Not by Spider-Man, though.
All right, Wesley, let's
And pancaking him?
Thank you.
I don't know if I like it. It's not a waffle.
The only way to defeat a waffle is by making it a pancake.
All right, I'm going to try to strike that from the record because I don't feel like that should be counted in my judgment.
That was good.
I want that quote. Okay.
I want that on a t-shirt.
Yeah, the only way to defeat a waffle is to pancake him. That sure was a thing.
Was it a thing?
It was unequivocally definitely a thing. So question 1, to recap, we gave that one to Matt for sheer gut reaction.
Senior Citizen Spider-Man.
Senior Spidey. Question 2 was the debate with the worst crying face of all time.
Fuck you, Matt.
What?
Yeah, Matt, you got weird. Yeah, you dug in deep. I appreciated it, but you that's one hell of a hill to die on.
You were trying to be so funny, and you just kept digging with that shovel.
Yeah.
In a bad way?
In a bad way.
Are you sure?
Matt, aside from that, Ben,
Guys?
you gave a very, very visceral description of
Yes.
the cry face, and adding the fact that the dialogue didn't make sense and it actually detracted from the scene is ultimately what won you over. So Ben gets that one.
Especially with those smiling eyebrows.
Yeah,
I think
that's the
beautiful.
part where I wrote that down. Question 3. I don't know what I was expecting with Waffly Toast and Gooseberry the Grimm. But
I was certainly satisfied with one.
Gooseberry the Grimm didn't have a connection to Spider-Man at all, as far as I can tell, other than he was from New York. And Ben tied universe in better with using Venom as the impetus for the incident which caused Waffly Toast to change. So we're scoring this one for Ben as well. Question 4.
Baby.
Yeah, just for that, Matt.
One of my notes is literally, I don't know what just happened. Wow.
Based off of the attack, honestly, both of you did pretty well on the attack. Matt, you just did worse on the defense.
Yeah, you couldn't really come up with any
That's
actual arguments for defending Ben's onslaught.
And we wanted to hear more on the attack. but you just really did not do well on the defense whatsoever.
Baby. So Ben's getting that one as well.
Unfortunate.
Now, question 5, keeping everybody on their toes since it's not decided yet, because I'm bad at math.
Oh, stop.
Yeah, we went first with Matt, and I love the idea of the prequel. I also love how you spelled prequel. We can cut this out, but in your notes, prequel is spelled Prequuil.
Sure.
How dare you? How dare you?
It's pretty beautiful. I love it. And I like that your example of the lack of CGI makes a lot more sense other than using some wires to shake doors.
Wires.
Then yours is seemingly interesting, and I think it's more of a heartfelt from what you want to see, but we're giving this one to Matt. So
No!
His
entire
total.
movie was basically just his parents are dead and he's dealing with it. Were they rich? We don't know. They're dead.
Sounds like a good movie.
Sounds like something Jerry Seinfeld would pitch.
The way you said it, sure.
No, Ben, you had a great movie. Honestly, the difference was the pitching the fight scene piece.
Yep.
Man.
I liked them both.
So did you guys know that Mr. Ditkovich was actually planned to be a retired Kraven the Hunter in a sequel?
I had no idea about that. That's really cool, though.
Yeah. Once I found that fact, I knew I had to tie it in, but fucking wires cost me again.
Again? When did the wires hurt you?
Yeah, dude, you didn't win 4-1. You won 3-2.
On the plus side, you don't have to dance. So
Yes, I'm super excited to see Matt's dance video. I'm hoping that he does his hair similar to Tobey Maguire's also.
Yeah,
He's
Oh,
actually
yeah,
got
you
the
have the
ability
hair
to.
for that.
I've got the quarantine hair going.
The quarantine here. The Manhattans have gotten to me.
Yeah, same with just vodka only.
And orange.
Yeah,
And cranberry
orange
juice.
liqueur and cranberry juice.
Matt, what's next week, bud?
So, if you guys want to join us next week, we will be watching the sci-fi thriller Sunshine, where Emily and Ben will be debating. I will be taking a break from getting my ass whooped. So, yeah, if you guys have listened this far, be sure to rate us 5 stars on iTunes or share us with a friend, and we appreciate your support. So, on that note, I just want to say thank you and goodbye.
Yep. Bye. Thank you.
Bye,
Thanks, everybody.
everyone.